Good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Carroll. I'm Head of Professional Development here at the Institute, and just want to welcome you to this morning's or this afternoon's information session on the two new diplomas that we've recently launched in the area of sustainability reporting and assurance. And we thought we'd put this session out to allow people to engage and learn a little bit more about it. Initially, we've had there's been a lot of interest. Some of you will know or may even done the certificate in sustainability reporting and strategy that we ran since October 22. And I suppose we developed that one and launched that one as we were, I suppose, aware of the trajectory and that sustainability reporting and assurance was on the horizon. I suppose late in 22, the EU published the draft of the European Sustainability Reporting standards, and I suppose it really got real from that point. And really, I think it was from about then that we've engaged with stakeholders, firms, regulators, experts to see what answer we needed to provide to members, what we needed to do to support you and others going on this journey, going from, I suppose, maybe a conceptual to an implementation phase. And the two diplomas are, I suppose, one of the answers, or two of the answers that we have for you to that question. As the slide in front of you says, we're going to run this session will run from now till 1 o'clock. We invite your questions. You're probably really familiar with Zoom at this point, but there's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Drop them in there. We'll pick up as many questions as we possibly can as we move through the presentation. I've introduced myself already. You're going to hear from Dr. Louise Gorman next, and Louise is the lead tutor, and she's worked with us extensively in developing and will be involved in the delivery of this program as well. I'm also delighted to be joined by my colleague Linda McGee. Linda is manager of the member experience team within the Institute, and we'll talk to us a little bit about enrolling, what you need to do, what you can expect, and the experience that you'll have. And also delighted to be joined by my colleague Karen Flannery. Karen works in the regulation part of the Institute Professional Standards and is heavily involved in the admission process for sustainability audit assurance providers. So it's delighted she could join us if there's any specific questions around that. So Louise, I'm going to call you in at this point and let you take over the reins and take it from here for the first few moments.
Great, thanks very much, Joe. Hi everyone. So as Joe explained, I'm lead tutor on the program, and I've had a hand in developing both programs, so the Diploma in Sustainability Reporting and the one in Audit and Assurance. So really the primary objective of both diplomas is to prepare practitioners for the forthcoming ESRS sustainability reporting regulations. And I should stop saying forthcoming, because really they're here now, so they will apply to all public interest entities for the end of this financial reporting year. So really the diploma is really designed to give you a sense of the standards and also the practical implementation of them. And if you are in the area then of providing assurance on the sustainability reports, that will familiarise you with the appropriate assurance standards and the requirements, the work that needs to be done, and what the report at the end will entail. So really to build on that, at the end of the programme, we would hope that you will appreciate the fundamental concept and recognise the needs of different stakeholders who will be the users of these reports. And really the reports are somewhat different to what we will be used to, in that EFRAG, who have developed the standards, have specified that the reports need to be usable by more than just your general users of financial information. So it extends to various different stakeholders, and the programme will familiarise you with this. A big area in the in the standards is the idea of impact, risks and opportunities. So throughout the modules, we will work on how you identify various different sustainability impacts, risks and opportunities, and how you determine whether or not they are material. And following up from that, a lot of the disclosures require that these are addressed with policies and actions and then measured and targets set. So for each area of the standards, be it climate change or own workforce, the programme will take you through those steps. And then really moving into preparing for assurance, the internal controls that will need to be in place in order to ensure that the information reported is reliable and accurate. And then, as I've said, for those who are taking our 7th module, so our first 6 will deal with the reporting, and the 7th module then will only be an aspect of the assurance diploma. For those of you who are taking that, it'll be a very specific focus with Brian Murphy, the tutor, on that module on preparing for assurance, who needs to be on the team, the work that needs to be done, and preparing the report and dealing with the standards that are currently in use and those that are coming down the line. So, yeah, okay, so who should take the programme? Well, really one question that I've been asked a lot is it necessary for every accountant to be qualified in this area? My answer will be, I feel there is a need. However, it would depend on the nature of your client base. As I said, public interest entities will be reporting under these standards for the financial year ending 2024, December 2024. However, it will extend to all large firms for the following year, and extending further on then to listed SMEs in the following year. Now, that said, because there's a huge emphasis in these standards on the value chain, we are already seeing that smaller entities are being required to provide a lot of sustainability data to larger stakeholders in supply chains and value chains. So it will be important that all clients could be served in this area, in the area of sustainability reporting. And then, as intuitively, who should take the assurance programme? Well, really anyone that believes they will be in a position that they need to provide assurance on the standard. So to talk you through, as I've said, the diploma in sustainability reporting will encompass 6 modules, and the diploma in assurance of sustainability reports will include 7. So just to talk you through those modules, the first module will really cover the basic concepts. And when I say that, if you've no pre-existing knowledge of sustainability, it will be quite we move fast from day one. So it will be advised that you have some knowledge of sustainability reporting before beginning the programme. But the first module will really cover a lot of what is set out in the standard ESRS 1, which really deals with the key concepts, the idea of a value chain, determining materiality, and really just how the standards are laid out, and also what the disclosures, how the disclosures should be formatted. They should be part of the management report, so it will cover a lot of that. Module 2 then deals very much with ESRS 2, which is very much concerned with the governance. So really the standards are all set out along the lines of governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. So module 2 will really start off at that governance stage, that will be delivered by Orla Carlin from GT, who has also had a role with EFRAG in developing the standards. Then we move into the very specific, the topical standards, and the first and the priority standard really is climate change, and it's quite comprehensive. So Dave Fitzgerald from Ornua will be developing that, or will be delivering that module, and he has great expertise in climate reporting. So quite technical, and we have taken the decision to devote a full module to that area. After the third module, then there will be an assignment. Our assignments will be very much, and we'll deal with this a little bit later, but they'll be very much case study based. So that will really assess your skills on the general concepts and applying them to the area of climate change. That's then followed by our fourth module in June, which deals with the other environmental reporting matters. Now, for some companies, there are a number of dispensations in the first year on reporting on other environmental reporting matters, but they will be in place from the following year. So that's really dealing with issues such as pollution, biodiversity, the circular economy, water and the marine. And that's delivered by Cormac Madden. We then move into the area of workforce, so the social standards. ESRS S1, which is the first of the social standards, is also very comprehensive. Professor Nafu from Trinity College has years of experience in this area and on reporting on workforce data. She's a professor of human resource management, so she'll deal very much with the data collection, the data analysis in that area. There are a number of other social issues which will be covered in Module 6, as well as just some general, we say, wrapping up pieces such as internal control, preparing for assurance before those who are taking the diploma in assurance will take the 7th module with Brian Murphy from Deloitte on the assurance of sustainability reports. So for those taking both diplomas, the second assessment comes at the end. So that will test or assess, I should say, your knowledge on other environmental reporting knowledge and the social issues, and as well as some of the internal control matters. And there will be an additional piece then for those taking the sustainability assurance diploma to examine your knowledge in that area. In terms of accreditation, so those taking the diploma in sustainability reporting will, if you're a member of Chartered Accountants, you will be awarded the diploma in sustainability. Other participants will then be awarded a diploma in strategic financial leadership by the Institute. Those taking the diploma in auditing and assurance of sustainability reporting will be awarded a diploma in auditing and assurance from the Institute, and other members will be awarded the diploma in auditing and assuring sustainability reporting by Chartered Accountants Ireland.
Brilliant, Louise. I think Linda's going to pick up this element here. So Linda McGee.
Sure.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Joe. So my name is Linda McGee. I'm the Member Experience Manager here at Chartered Accountants Ireland, and myself and the team will be looking after you when it comes to the delivery side of the diploma. So today I'm just going to cover some basic information that we kind of get asked when people ring us on the phone. We have kind of our top 5 questions. So the first question we get asked is, how is the course delivered? So once you register on the program, you'll get access to our learning management system, and we use Moodle for that. And Moodle is essentially just a web page where we centralize all of the course content. So you'll get your course material, PowerPoint slides, notes, any pre-recorded content will be there, access to the live sessions that you need to go over there. You get your assignments on the page as well. Plus there's chat forums where you can ask questions to the speakers and speak to each other as peer-to-peer and kind of discuss any topics that you want. And then also there'll be contact details for your coordinator. So it's really just a one-stop shop where you'll get all of the information that you need, and you'll kind of visit there as you work out through the program. The next thing we get asked is, how do the live sessions work? So the live sessions, we deliver all of our live sessions within Zoom. So you'll be kind of the same as we are today. And you will get access to those live sessions, as I said, within the Moodle platform. And we do encourage participants to join the live sessions and have a working camera and a working microphone, so you can join the discussion or ask the questions to the lecturers or the other participants. So that is one of the requirements that we would ask when you join the program. We get a lot of questions about, do I have to attend all the live sessions? And, we of course would say, yes, it would be great. We would encourage everyone to join as many live sessions as possible. We totally understand that, there are some times where people have other things happening or they're unwell and they can't join the session. So the sessions themselves are recorded and then made available on Moodle for you to watch at a later date, or to watch back if you have been attending the live session and you want to watch something back. So they will be available on there. But I suppose the only downside to that is, if you do break off into kind of separate groups and do work as separate groups, that element is not recorded. So you might miss out on some of the elements of the peer-to-peer working if you are just relying on the recording. So we would ask people to join as many live sessions as possible. The next question we get is about assignments, and this is the one where people go, I haven't done an assignment in X amount of years, you know, what do I need to do? So that's kind of one of our big questions that we get. So, you know, this course, both of the diplomas are, you know, have two practically based assignments that kind of work through the practical elements of the course. And you will receive your assignments through Moodle, and each assignment will be very clear on the requirements within that assignment. And normally, typically, you have 4 weeks to complete. So once you download, 4 weeks to complete it, and then you'll upload it back up to Moodle, and it'll be corrected on Moodle, and you will get the results through Moodle. And the assignment coordinator will send you an email to say your results are ready. So everything is done through the platform and quite straightforward to use. The next question we get are entry requirements. So the majority of our programs are, you know, meet the needs of finance professionals. Obviously, Chartered Accountants Ireland would be within that, but any other recognised accountancy body would also fit under the finance professional requirements. But additionally to that, we do take people who have a level 8 kind of course within the NFQ qualification that is, again, in the finance field. And we also take people who have equivalent relevant experience. And if you're unsure about do I or don't I have the relevant experience, give us a call. We'll chat through it with you. We'll kind of work it through, and we'll find most people do have the experience, but we're always here just to chat through. If you're unsure, ask us the question and we will go through that with you. And the last question is about course fees. So you can I think the course fees are up on the screen now. What's the slide before that? Thanks a million. Yeah, they're up on the screen there. So we can take bookings through the application form directly to us, or you can book online. We can you can pay by credit card, you can pay by bank transfer, we can invoice a firm, we can invoice with PO if that's something that your firm needs to do. We also then have an installment payment option. So we divide the course fee into 4 equal payments, the first being taken at registration, and then we can work with you on the dates for the additional 4 payments. So we're very flexible. So again, I would recommend any questions about entry requirements, course fees, anything on the practical side, just give us a ring or send us an email and we will help and work through the details. So they're the kind of top 5 questions that we get. But we're here, the team are here to answer your questions before registration, help you to work through registration, and then obviously you'll have a designated coordinator that will work with you throughout the course. At any time you have any questions, you can ring them or email them or send them a notification through Moodle, and we will get the answer back to you. So someone on the team here is to work with you the whole way through the program and to make sure that you're comfortable. You're working, ultimately we want everyone to pass, so we're here just to make sure that we can help that process, get you through that process as smoothly as possible.
Brilliant, Linda. Thank you very much. I think that was pretty comprehensive and hopefully covered off some of the key questions you said there, the main ones that you receive on an ongoing basis. So hopefully that matches up people's thoughts as well today. Louise, I'll invite you to come back in, and if Karen, you're welcome to join if you'd like as well. We've got a number of questions in. Before we get into them, I suppose I was just thinking a bit about some of the stuff that you mentioned, Louise. And I mean, does everybody need to do this? If I want to become a sustainability audit assurance provider, do I need to do this course, or is there what are my options?
Technically you don't, Joe, because really the requirements will be, and you could maybe confirm this for me as well, but in order to provide assurance you require 60 hours of CPD. Some of that needs to be structured. Right. So there are other offerings, and I'm not really aware of anything very specific for the purposes of the ESRS, but there are some offerings out there that would cover some of those hours. However, this program would cover all of your 60 hours of CPD. So do you need to do it? My answer would probably be it's the best way of doing it, but then I am biased, but I do think it's probably the most comprehensive way of doing it and being assured that you have done the appropriate 60 hours of training.
And the 60 hours really relates to the assurance and on auditing of it, Karen, not to the, I suppose, people learning reporting, which I suppose is it's more what they need, they assess themselves, but there are kind of regulatory requirements. Can you shed any more light on that? Is there anything that you think is worth saying?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. And what I'm going to do is when I just in a moment, I'm going to pop into the chat a link to some FAQs that are on the
Brilliant.
Institute's website in relation to the authorization of sustainability assurance service providers, where a lot of the information that people who are interested can find out, you know, what you need to be eligible and so on. So a person who wishes to be a sustainability assurance service provider, first and foremost, they need to be already approved as a responsible individual. That's a statutory auditor in Ireland. So that's the key prerequisite. And in addition to being a statutory auditor approved already, they also need to have the relevant education and training and so on. But for a period of time, for this transitional arrangement period, the experience and education that's required will be demonstrated by being able to demonstrate that you've had 60 hours of relevant CPD. So this course would meet that requirement, in that it covers the 60 hours that's required. But there are 4 topics of CPD that need to be covered, and it includes the ESRSs, and it includes the assurance element as well. So, you know, I would really advise anyone who is already a statutory auditor or who is going to become a statutory auditor in the next year or two, to look first of all at our FAQs, and then if they have any questions, to get in touch with us at Professional Standards. And there's an email contact link in that FAQ document as well, so that people can reach out to us if they have some questions in that regard. But to answer the question, do you have to do this course? No, you certainly do not. There are many ways that people can demonstrate that they have the appropriate CPD, but as Louise rightly says, there's not a lot of courses like this out there, because this is also new and developing. So this is certainly a very good starting place for people who need to get that CPD. And I'll just pop that link in the chat now, Joe, for anyone who wants to avail of that.
That'd be very helpful, Karen. Thank you very much. Fiona Cusack was asking us, will there be practical examples during the course, a bit like past papers in regular accounting training? Obviously, she said, well, aware that this is just the first year of reporting. Louise, what's the approach going to be around that?
Yes, well, the development of the ESRS is very, very closely. There was a lot of close work with the Global Reporting Initiative and the Task Force on climate-related financial disclosures, and really the structure of the ESRS is very similar to those voluntary frameworks that have been in place that many large companies have been reporting against for a number of years now. So we will develop those existing practical examples into topics that, you know, we can provide examples on, and also provide, say, test questions and ultimately assessments on what has already been done under the voluntary frameworks, and we will then be putting them into the context of the ESRS.
Brilliant. Okay, perfect. Okay. Anya's asking us about the focus on ISSB and TCFD that we seem to be very focused on. So the CSRD. I kind of know the approach there, but it'd be great, Louise, if you could kind of take us through the
Sure.
thought process there, and what we're covering and not covering.
Well, I suppose, as I just mentioned, the ESRS have followed the structure of the TCFD, and we will obviously be referring them, particularly in teaching or delivering the session on climate change. We will be referring back to the TCFD and really drawing the differences and comparing and contrasting. So we will be covering the TCFD. Currently, if you're adhering to the ESRS, you are, because they're interoperable with the ISSB standards, you are by default adhering to the ISSB standards. That's not to say that some practitioners may encounter situations where they're reporting for clients perhaps outside of the EU, in which case maybe ISSB standards would be more relevant. And really currently there is just the 2 standards, the general standard and climate standard. However, the syllabus for the climate module will draw some distinctions between the ESRS, or they're not really distinctions, but, you know, draw examples from the ISSB standard as well. And it is important from a materiality perspective to be aware that the ISSB is really basically only been evaluated on a single materiality or a financial materiality basis. ESRS are on a double materiality basis, and we will in the delivery draw the distinctions between those two in terms of a materiality assessment.
I know, Louise, a lot of time and oxygen was expended in discussing where we drew the boundaries around this course, and how much was enough. And I mean, I think just the scope and size of the ESRS is just to some extent dictated what was the cover, and that kind of compare and contrast approach was the decision we arrived at, because I suppose otherwise this course could be well, much longer.
Or you could fill 10 modules really, but yeah, we had to draw the line, and the European, well, what's effectively legislation had to be prioritised. So that's why our focus did go primarily on the ESRS.
Okay, hopefully that answers your question, Anya. The next one was about assignments. So I think you mentioned a little bit about that, but maybe you might give us a little bit more. I think you mentioned
Sure.
Case studies and based on reports the existing reports from organisations.
Sure, and this is subject, of course, to final confirmation by the various different tutors on the programme. However, our initial plans are that it will be very much case study based, and that we want to accommodate for the fact that you may have clients in different sectors. So really, we were hoping to maybe give you the choice in your assessment that you could say focus on maybe one of three key sectors and conduct your assessment on that basis. Now, I've already mentioned that there is quite a bit already being done in Ireland and across the EU in sustainability reporting. So the assessments will be very much based on what various companies have been disclosing under TCFD, under GRI, and the assignment would really be to prepare an ESRS report on the basis of that data. So that's really in a nutshell, but it will be very case study based.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully that answers that question. Christine's going about the level of diploma. Christine, it's a professional award. It's not actually on the qualification framework. Chartered Accountants Ireland is a statutory awarding body, so we're empowered to make awards of diplomas and certificates and other things, but they're not actually, this one's not actually on the framework, or more generally our diplomas aren't on the framework. But what I can tell you is the Chartered Accountants qualification itself was evaluated a number of years ago by HETAC, as it was at the time, and evaluated as being a level 9, which is equivalent to a master's program. And a program like this would definitely be at the content is going to be you're encountering is going to be at a level of a similar standard that you would encounter if you were doing, say, the FE exams. So I mean, we would think that would be kind of a level 9, but it's not an official level. So hopefully that answers that for you. Question about public sector entities, Louise. What someone who works in that area, you might have something to say about it. What do you think about that? How relevant is the course to people preparing financial statements for public sector bodies, e.g., universities?
Yeah, well, really the standards don't apply to public sector entities. However, like what we're seeing is that a lot of public sector entities are preparing reports, and just from a comparability perspective, it would be nice to see that they will be prepared alongside the standards as well, and even to follow that general format, because really one of the biggest challenges with sustainability reporting, unlike financial reports, is it's very different. You're really comparing apples and oranges a lot, because the impact for every firm is different. And I know, like say in universities, we're measuring our own carbon footprint at the moment, and there's a lot of work that goes into that, and I think it's very useful to have some training in the reporting piece. So I would certainly say it could be useful, yeah.
And in terms just broadly picking up on I suppose a key core element to this sector wise. So like I mean, are we taking a sectoral approach? I mean, since we didn't cover the public sector entities specifically in the certificate as this person says. So is there a financial services band? Is it a practice band? Like what is the approach going to be in that regard?
Well, I wouldn't say we're taking a sectoral approach, primarily because EFRAG are currently working on sector-specific standards. So there aren't such a thing at the moment. Our thinking around developing content and developing assessment would be that we would say pick 3 key sectors for focus. So really what we're thinking in that area could be, and again, subject to confirmation, but perhaps financial services, construction, and food and beverage have been sort of what's been on our radar, perhaps retail. Now, they will be maybe examples that will be used, but we're not going to dismiss every other sector. So depending on the module, and so certain sectors, say, for example, are particularly exposed to climate risk. Others would, workforce might be a material, a particularly priority area for them. So depending on the topic being covered, we'll probably cover we will cover the most affected standards in that specific domain, be it circular economy and recycling. So, that's really the approach that would be taken there.
Okay. Dara's asking about the certificate and the difference between it and I'm sure there are people here on this meeting who've done the certificate. I know you and we would have looked at the certificate as a starting point and seeing was there I suppose what was the crossover and should one be a prerequisite or an entry, and eventually I think the decision was that they were distinct programs with reasonably distinct audiences and reasonably distinct reasons to exist. But maybe you might talk a little bit about that and how you would see someone if they were trying to make a decision between the both. Maybe what might the things they might want to consider.
Sure thing. I think the cert is absolutely fantastic in giving you that knowledge in a general sense of sustainability, with an emphasis on how that affects the accountant and how that affects reporting. However, the diploma would be much more technical, and I wouldn't call it a sustainability diploma, I would call it a sustainability reporting diploma. So while the cert will give you that basis in sustainability and how it affects us generally, the diploma will be much more specific in terms of the reporting. And I did mention when we were going through the slides that the first module will introduce the basic concepts, but that's not to say that we will be going through the ABCs of sustainability. The Institute already has fantastic online resources there, including a glossary of terms. And of course, we won't just start bang straight into reporting. There will be some contextual information given. However, I would say if you're very uncomfortable with the area of sustainability, the cert would probably be a good starting point. And then maybe the diploma would be the next step. If you're already comfortable with the area of sustainability, I'd say you'd be ready to go straight into the diploma.
So, Louise, I would have thought that if someone was, going to be actually involved in the implementation, or maybe more directly overseeing the implementation of the standards, or auditing, assuring the standards, the diplomas are probably it. But if you were more maybe in a supervisory leadership or at a very early stage and still wanted to feel your way into it, the certificate might be an appropriate and a good way of doing either of those sort of things.
100%. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Question there about percentage of people, our anticipation, I suppose, about backgrounds and the lectures. So I suppose I can tell you that the tutors have varied backgrounds, as Louise would have mentioned. Like the workforce is taken by Professor Nafu. It comes from I suppose a HR background. Cormac Madden comes from ESB, and he is, I think, I'm going to say, an engineering background originally, but has been working in the sustainability area for a long number of years. So I mean, this is a stakeholder management exercise to an extent. The accountant, I think, is probably sitting at the nexus, at the center of a web of people and information, as I would see it, Louise. And
Yeah.
one of the tasks they'll have is to coordinate and pull that information from different sources. But just to bounce that over to you, I mean, I suppose it's a little bit about the background of people involved, and maybe about the background of what people need, the existing level of knowledge people need to engage in the course.
Sure. Well, in terms of the background of the people involved, so really, as you said, NAFU, very, very experienced in the area of HR management, and Orla Carolan, working in Grant Thornton, would have that insight in terms of reporting, and she's also served with EFRAG, so she really would have that first-hand information. Dave Fitzgerald has worked on sustainability reporting for a number of years, and Cormac, again, coming from ESB, would be one of the primary probably affected areas, so great knowledge in that area. And then Brian Murphy from Deloitte, fantastic background, both as an educator and as an assurance provider, and very heavily involved in the sustainability assurance space. Myself, I suppose it has become my core research focus. I have been engaging with accountants in the area of sustainability reporting. I can't believe it now, but probably about 4 years, I think it kicked off during COVID. So that's my COVID legacy. So I would have a lot of experience on the practicalities and the challenges that accountants are dealing with in sustainability reporting. So that would be the faculty or the tutors covered who say, what sort of a background do you need to have? We are sort of working from the assumption that you are coming from an accounting background, and really what we are trying to provide to you is just what to build on your training as an accountant. But really now we're just dealing with, instead of and I'm not going to say instead of financial data, because financial data is still involved in this. But alongside financial data, we're now dealing with environmental data and social data, and that will need to be reported in a manner akin to what accountants have been reporting for many years, and except it's something of a different value instead of a monetary value.
Yeah, so I think, Orla, we don't exclude anyone with any background, as Karen was said. If someone's wanting to go on to be a sustainability assurance provider, they will need to be hold an audit registration, which means they will have to be a qualified accountant. But other than that, in terms of doing the course, we're not excluding anybody. I mean, it would be just satisfy yourself that you've got that kind of base level of knowledge that Louise talked about, because I'd say there is a certain presumption of where people are starting from with all our programs, but we would, right across the board, we'd have a percentage of people who come from other professional qualifications, other professional accountancy qualifications, and from outside the accountancy profession, depending on the program. Probably conceive this as mostly being relevant to accountants, but certainly, as Linda mentioned, the door is open if people think they've got the right sort of mix of experience and qualifications.
And Joe, just really to add to that, in fact, I suppose one message I have been sort of saying to practitioners is that really it shouldn't just be accountants that are involved in this process, and that it's across the board, that this is going to involve HR people, it's going to involve procurement, it's going to involve IT, it's going to involve every aspect of an organization. So I think it is crucial that as many people get trained up as possible.
Okay. Fiona's asking us here, will we see a view of both large and small SMEs who are coming into scope as suppliers to larger companies? So I suppose it's that kind of trickle down impact. And it was a question I wrote for myself as you were speaking earlier on, Louise, like, is this just a big org problem? You know, or you know, who needs to be concerned about this?
The trickle down effect is very real in this area, because they're very, very big on the term value chain, and value chain goes even beyond the supply chain. And anyone really that's adding value to a big org's products could be very, very much affected by this. And we are already hearing stories that SMEs are facing difficulties in providing the requisite data to larger entities that they work with, and that really the solution to this would be if every business had were doing their sustainability reporting. So I think even if you're dealing with SMEs, it will be very valuable to you, because in fact the fear will be that SMEs may be at a disadvantage commercially because they don't have sustainability data.
And I suppose, look, a lot of the early best practice, like the kind of the existing uh, disclosures that happen within is in the large entities. So examples that will be drawn from. But will we be able to reflect on the needs of SMEs as well as we go through the course?
Of course, yeah. And I think like one thing that will be encouraged is that SMEs be facilitated in providing data, and we'll cover that issue. And there are also some provisions in the directive that allow for estimations to be made where, say, micro SMEs are just so small that they wouldn't be able to provide data. So we'll deal with those provisions throughout the various different affected areas in the programme.
There's a great one in here from Morris, Louise, asking about, I suppose, the various different areas, the EU Water Frameworks Directive, Maritime Framework Directive, planning. What extent will the course delve into these?
Mm-hmm. It will where relevant. And so many of the standards would say refer to, say, water directive or whatever it might be. So if we meet an area that must be disclosed and it relates to another directive, that will be covered so that you have the requisite knowledge on that directive. Okay. We can't, like, I think within the European Green Deal, there's so many different directives that, again, back to our conversation about where do we draw the line, but where necessary, we will cover those directives.
Okay. Question here from Martina about how many words in an assignment. Martina, we will give you some guidance around that. I probably would expect that an assignment is going to take you a good weekend, if not a bit more, to do these. Like they are reasonably substantial. Linda, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, it is a question we get a lot. So we don't specifically say 5,000 words or anything like that. So we do kind of give a rough guide about page numbers between X and X number of pages. Obviously, we don't want a 100-page report, but we don't want a 2-page report. So the guidance we give is more about the kind of the level of kind of pages, not the specific word count. So that's how we work that out.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. That's very helpful. Just picking up there's some in the chat as well. Would you recommend that how many that a number of members from a practice or company take the course, or would it be sufficient just to have one specialist? So could someone come along kind of disseminate the information, or what's the?
It would depend on the practice. I guess if it's a very small practice and you really think that maybe only say 20% of your clients may need this service, well, you could have a specialist in that area. I would say, however, anything larger, it would be good that really there are a number who are literate in this area. So I would say it would depend on your needs, but really this isn't going away. So I'd say maybe if you wanted to get one person trained up initially, but I would say that would need to be probably followed up with more qualifications, because ultimately a lot of firms will require these services.
Okay. So question here, I haven't thought about this one before, Louise. Would there be a benefit of someone working in ESG reporting to do the module 7 on assurance to understand the audit requirements, so to get themselves in that frame of mind?
I had that thought myself. Now in module 6, we do cover preparing for assurance, but it's not in the depth that Brian would cover it in module 7. And so I think it would perhaps be no harm to do the 7th module to get that insight. And nothing's lost in the way of education, but again, that's sort of my perspective as an educator. But I do think we certainly wouldn't, if you're not an assurance provider, we certainly wouldn't turn you away from module 7, and it could be very valuable.
Okay, so someone could conceivably do that for sure. Louise, I'm just imagining someone kind of in insurance and they're going, well, why do I need to do the 6 standards as well as the 7th? Like, can I not just do the 7th? Like, why are we dragging people through the whole standards as well? I think like Karen mentioned something there that's relevant, but just to really close off that one.
Yeah, and like Karen would be much more literate in the actual requirements. I suppose the answer that comes off the tip of my tongue is I don't believe you could provide assurance unless you understood the standards. They are very technical.
Right.
So really it would require a very specific knowledge that I think the 6 modules will certainly cover. But I think maybe Karen could speak to the knowledge that the assurance provider should have in this area better than I can.
Yeah, Louise, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. Like, it's not possible to provide assurance on something that you don't fundamentally understand. So, just in general terms, that makes complete sense. And also, the requirements of legislation are that the CPD that must be demonstrated by those applying for sustainability assurance provider status includes specifically education in relation to the ESRSs. So yeah, it's necessary to get that. Again, as we said at the outset, not specifically through this course, but if you haven't gotten it through a diploma like this or this diploma, you have to be able to demonstrate that knowledge coming from somewhere else. So it is an important part of the getting the competence together. And 2 other elements as well. So I've mentioned the ESRSs, obviously the assurance is important, the training and assurance. But the other 2 topic areas that are required is knowledge in relation to sustainability analysis and sustainability due diligence. And while I haven't looked at the curriculum in enormous detail, and I have some questions myself as somebody interested potentially in doing this diploma, I do think it sounds like those topics are woven into the modules as you go along as well. So it's not just a case of learning about whatever assurance standard is going to apply to these engagements. It's also about making sure that you meet the legal requirements as somebody who wants to be a sustainability assurance provider, of having the overall competence in this area and being able to demonstrate that really. So well, it makes sense generally, but it's also a legal requirement.
Karen, just while we have you here,
yeah.
A lot of what we're talking about is what's the grandfathering regime, and so I mean,
Yes.
I mean, because I mean, a lot of people might think grandfathering kind of exempts you from a number of things, but so what's the difference between the grandfathering and what that will become the entry route post the grandfathering period, which is from now to 2026, is it?
Yeah, that's correct, Joe. And I suppose we haven't focused on it too much here because we're talking about the detail of the diploma, but the requirements for somebody who wants to be a sustainability assurance provider is first and foremost that they are a statutory auditor, and that's, as we understand from the policy decisions that have been taken by the Irish government, that's the way the CSOD will be transposed in Ireland, although that legislation is still awaited. That aspect of it we're quite sure of. You will have to be a statutory auditor. And the CSRD provides for this grandfathering period, which, as you say, sounds like that's an easy way in. I suppose it's mildly easier in that somebody who is approved as a statutory auditor, that's a responsible individual in institute speak, by the 31st of December 2025, somebody who's approved by that time as an auditor could apply for sustainability assurance provider status as long as they're able to demonstrate 60 hours of relevant CPD under the topics we've talked about. Thereafter, somebody who becomes a statutory auditor after the 1st of January 2026 and wishes to become a sustainability assurance provider in the future, they will need to undertake 8 months of practical training and to follow a specific program of education followed by examination. And that's something that hasn't been developed yet. But that so down the road, the 60 hours of CPD won't be available to people who become statutory auditors after that 1st of January 2026. So it's only going to become more challenging.
They'll require 8 months
of
specific experience.
The 8 months practical training and the specific education program with examination at the end as well. So yeah, there's it's going to become more involved, I suppose,
going to step
forward.
Up. Yeah. No, that's great. I have a couple more questions there. And Louise, you mentioned some further developments to come from EFRAG. So the people who are setting these standards, and I think the one you mentioned was sector specific one. So if there are further developments from EFRAG, will there be add-ons to the diploma going forward? I suppose pick that up as much as you can, and I'll try to answer what I think I can as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't know if you could answer this better than me, Joe, but I think it will be necessary to maybe just have some form of CPD to keep you abreast of the developments in the standards. So the way EFRAG are approaching it is they have priority sectors, obviously the ones that pose the greatest risk to, say, climate is the focus really. So the likes of oil and gas and so on are being prioritised as those developments, more than when an accounting standard is updated or amended, that some training or an update will be required in that regard, and we will be in a position to deliver on that if that's sort of okay with you, Joe.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's, Louise mentioned you're talking CPD, so I mean, I would have thought our first port of call would be to look at, could this be done in a short, standalone 3-hour, 6-hour session, whatever was appropriate. We'd be looking, I suppose, also at the exposure of members, and that would help us guide, in terms of what, because there are, if they're going to get into sectoral ones, some of them probably would be very, very small, and they may not be niches that we would be capable of serving, but we certainly be looking at those as they came through and see what we should do. So I don't necessarily see it's going to be another qualification or an add-on to the diploma, but that's just from where we are at the moment in terms of trying to anticipate what will happen. We'll have to look at what happens as they come through and then make a proper decision at that point. But probably the gut feel would be to be a CPD answer. So it'd be kind of there's a new one on oil and gas, as Louise said, and it might be a kind of 3-hour session on, okay, so here's how this relates to core ESRS, and this is how the specific one does, and that kind of compare and contrast can allow you to leverage existing knowledge and move with a degree of speed through something. So that's probably.
And Joe, even following the way EFRAG are moving through these, it seems that you might get sectoral standards for 2 or 3 sectors coming very close together. So I know agriculture, food and beverage are all on the target list for very soon. So, it may be a case, like I know agriculture, food and beverage would probably be very, very relevant. Yeah. So, it may be the case that 3 or 4 will come and we could maybe cover them in a comprehensive way like that.
Okay, so I think our last question is, with so few companies subject to ESRS and it mainly being a big 4 service, do the proposed CPD requirements exclude the possibility of any smaller firm of ever being an assurance provider in this area? Now, I know when we were looking at this a while ago, I was surprised how many of the smaller firms would have clients that would come into the net, as I understood at the time. So Karen may have views on that as well. But Louise, what's I mean, you've talked about trickle down as well. So I mean, what's your first kind of thoughts on it?
I wouldn't say it's definitely exclusive to the larger, say, top tier firms. I have spoken to SMPs who are being asked to provide assurance. Now, I wouldn't say certainly not every SMP, but like you said, Joe, I was surprised myself by the firms that are falling into the net of the CSRD. So, I think I certainly wouldn't say that smaller firms will be excluded from assurance provider roles, definitely. And, as we said, this is all the build up to what's going to become more and more like they're indicating that we will move from limited assurance to reasonable assurance. That I think really the goal here is that ultimately every firm will be reporting something. So, you know, as I said, it's not going away. It's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I would have think if I was talking to any firm, I'd say, look, you need to analyze your client base and see, do you have someone that you can anticipate is going to fall into this bucket, and when they might fall into it, and then I suppose you need to think about future clients as well, and see, you know, what could you anticipate a situation where you'd have clients, because what Karen spoke to us about the grandfathering and the requirements become much more onerous post 2026. I'd be kind of thinking you need to kind of anticipate what's happening in the future and maybe look at that rather than kind of waiting and then falling into, you know, losing that opportunity. So I suppose, you know, I would have thought you'd want to be fairly sure that you're not going to get into this area, and have a plan, whether that's, you know, you're partnering up with someone and kind of sending, you know, clients that direction or whatever. But Karen, what's your thoughts? Because you're obviously dealing with people in different stages of thoughts about this at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose you know, there's a little bit of crystal ball gazing there in terms of who's going to be involved in this work down the line. But we do know that the CSRD is phasing in entities that are in scope. There's a good technical alert issued by the Institute during the middle of last year, which is available on our web pages. And it kind of talks a little bit about scope as well for people that need a bit more clarity on that. But I would say, in relation to who wants to be a sustainability assurance provider and the grandfathering arrangements, like definitely the entities in scope in year one, I think that there are probably only 30 or 40 entities in Ireland that will be in scope of the CSRD in the first year. So the number of assurance providers that are needed for those is actually quite small. But that number will grow. And as you say, that there's the value chain aspect of it going forward. And I think each accounting firm will need to make its own commercial decision as to whether this is an area that's worth investing in, given the client base and so on. But for the grandfathering arrangements to apply, and again, I say this also, again, acknowledging that we haven't seen the transposing legislation yet, and that's not expected until the middle of this year. But if the grandfathering arrangements apply as we expect them to apply, it will mean that this window of being able to take 60 hours of relevant CPD, it won't just immediately shut down on January 2026. So the requirement is that you're approved as a statutory auditor before the 1st of January 2026. And any person who's in that category, when they subsequently go to apply for sustainability assurance service provider status, then the eligibility requirements for those individuals will be that they have 60 hours of relevant CPD. And that CPD that they need to demonstrate will need to be current at the time that they're applying. So, you know, you can't do a diploma now and then, you know, in 8 years' time decide you want to be a sustainability assurance provider and think that is going to demonstrate competence. So it's something that will evolve, and it's something that we'll all be keeping very close eye on going forward. But it's not that this grandfathering window is going to completely close down. So what firms should really be thinking about is, are there individuals who are close to becoming statutory auditors, or who the firm is considering appointing as a responsible individual, and should they be considering getting those individuals approved as RI within the window? And I would also, you know, from the Institute's perspective, it really need to flag, we actually can't consider a floodgate of applications for sustainability assurance service provider status in the middle of this year. So we will be prioritizing those applications where we know that the applicants actually have clients in scope for this year, and therefore they need to get their approval in order. So I suppose it's kind of a triage approach, given available resources and so on. So this is something that's going to evolve and emerge, and we're working on building that framework at the moment. So even the FAQs that I've shared a link to is a live document, and we'll be updating that as things go along as well. So I encourage people to keep an eye on that if they're interested in getting into this space. But yeah, lots to see as we move forward.
Listen, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to Louise, Karen, Linda for speaking as well. And I suppose everyone, hope you have a good day. Goodbye. Thanks.